After 16 years, Karen, your expertise no longer aligns with our direction, Megan stated bluntly, her face dominating my laptop screen. Your access terminates today. I smiled calmly and responded, I understand completely. Megan seemed relieved by my composed reaction. The Zoom call wasn't scheduled, a sudden meeting request with Megan Russo, my team leader, and Jessica from HR, who remained silent. I had dedicated nearly 2 decades to Hollowgate Systems in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Establishing their operations department from the ground up, guiding numerous junior staff, and managing every challenge with steady precision. But Hollowgate had transformed. 6 months prior, a corporate overhaul introduced new leadership and shifted priorities. Megan, hired externally, was younger, ambitious, and eager to leave her mark. She barely grasped our systems before pushing to overhaul them. Now, it seemed, I was next in line for replacement. We'll need your laptop returned by Wednesday. Jessica added, her tone polished from delivering such news repeatedly. I'll send you the shipping instructions and exit documents. Of course, I replied, keeping my poise. Is there anything else you need from me? Megan shook her head. That's all, Karen. Thank you for your service. The call ended abruptly. I leaned back, staring at the blank screen. 16 years, gone in an instant. What Megan didn't know was that I had already accepted a Director of Operations role at Ironwood Forge, Hollowgate's biggest rival, starting Monday. 3 weeks earlier, Douglas Williams, Ironwood's CEO, contacted me after hearing about Hollowgate's changes. We'd known each other professionally for years, meeting occasionally at industry events. Karen, he said during our first discussion, Hollowgate is making a grave error if they're pushing you aside. We've always respected your operational skills. We need someone with your expertise. The offer came a week later, a significant salary bump, a director title, and the autonomy to assemble my team. I signed the contract the day before the Zoom call. I closed my laptop and checked my phone. 2 texts had arrived during the meeting. The first was from my husband, Tom, how'd it go? Call me when you're free. The second was from Douglas, office set for Monday. Team's eager to meet you. This is the start of something big. I smiled. Megan had no clue what was coming. I met Tom 16 years ago at a tech conference in Chicago. He was speaking on network security. I was there for my previous employer. We bonded over coffee during a break, and our connection never faded. 6 months later, we married, and I joined Hollowgate Systems to relocate to Minneapolis and develop their operations department. Those early days at Hollowgate were thrilling. We were a smaller, agile company then. I had the freedom to execute my vision, create efficient systems, and build something impactful. My team expanded from just me to 25 skilled professionals, overseeing operations for a growing enterprise. Our former CEO, Harold Wilson, was my strongest supporter. Karen, he'd say, you're the foundation of this company. Without you, we'd collapse. Harold retired last year, and everything shifted. The board hired Vivian Torres, a driven executive from a larger tech firm, known for bold growth strategies. Torres quickly reshaped the company to fit her vision. Long-term employees were gradually replaced with her choices. Policies changed, priorities realigned. Megan Russo was one of Torres's first hires, 35, with a strong resume but limited experience in our industry. She was placed above me, despite my seniority and deep knowledge of the company. We need new viewpoints, Torres declared at an all-hands meeting introducing Megan, fresh talent to elevate us. I tried to adapt, sharing my knowledge, documenting processes, and offering insights from years of experience. But Megan seemed intent on marking her territory, dismissing my input and slowly excluding me from operations discussions. The signs were clear. I wasn't shocked by the Zoom call, only by its timing. I'd expected at least a transition period. They did what? Tom exclaimed when I called him afterward. His indignation on my behalf was endearing but unnecessary. It's fine, really, I assured him. This gives me a perfect reason to take the weekend off before starting at Ironwood on Monday. You're handling this too well, Tom said, suspicion in his voice. He knew me too well. Let's just say I've had time to mentally prepare, I replied. And I might feel a bit of satisfaction knowing that while Megan thinks she's solved a problem, she's created a bigger one for Hollowgate. Remind me never to cross you, Tom laughed. Too late, I teased. You already did when you ate the last slice of chocolate cake last weekend. That evening, I sorted through my home office, organizing 16 years' worth of Hollowgate materials. Most would be shredded. I'd been meticulous about not bringing confidential data home, but years of proprietary work habits were hard to break. I paused over a photo of my original team, 5 of us squeezed into Hollowgate's first proper office, celebrating our first major client success. Harold Wilson stood in the center, arm around me, pride clear on his face. Of those in the photo, only I had stayed until now. The others had moved on years ago. I wondered if any might be interested in joining me at Ironwood. My phone buzzed with a text from Natalie, my former mentee, who left Hollowgate 6 months ago when the changes began. Heard the news. Their loss. Drinks tomorrow? Maxwell's at 7. I smiled and replied, you're on. Got interesting news to share. Natalie had thrived under my mentorship, growing from an eager but green college grad into a skilled operations specialist. When she left, several clients noticed her absence. I suspected Torres and Megan had underestimated her impact, just as they had mine. I continued sorting papers, occasionally keeping notes or documents that could aid my new role, nothing proprietary. Nothing breaching my Hollowgate contract, but the wisdom and insights I'd earned. Around midnight, an email from Jessica in HR arrived. Karen, attached are your exit paperwork and instructions for returning company property. On behalf of Hollowgate Systems, we thank you for your dedicated service and wish you success in your future endeavors. The impersonal tone of the form letter stung more than I expected. 16 years reduced to a template. I shut down my computer and joined Tom, who was reading in bed. You know, he said, looking up, I don't think I've ever seen you this calm after a major life change. I slipped under the covers. That's because this isn't an ending. It's a beginning. Still, Tom pressed, you gave nearly 2 decades to Hollowgate. You built something meaningful there. It can't be easy to walk away. I sighed, conceding his point. I'm not abandoning what I built. I'm taking the best parts with me, the knowledge, the experience, the relationships. Hollowgate decided they don't need me, but they'll soon see what they've lost. Their mistake is Ironwood's gain. And mine, I added. I've outgrown Hollowgate. I just didn't realize it until they made me see it. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Maxwell's was lively for a Saturday evening. I spotted Natalie in our usual corner booth, 2 glasses of wine waiting. There she is, Natalie said as I approached, the latest victim of the Torres regime. Former victim, I corrected. Sliding in. Current victor. Natalie raised an eyebrow. Spill. I told her about my new role at Ironwood, watching her expression shift from empathy to excitement to awe. Director of Operations at Ironwood? Karen, that's incredible, she exclaimed. Megan's face when she finds out, I'd pay to see it. I'm not doing this for revenge, I said, though a smile crept through. Of course not, Natalie replied, unconvinced. You're doing it for the career growth and to join a company that actually values your skills. Exactly. But the revenge is a nice perk, she added with a grin. I laughed. Maybe a small perk. We clinked glasses. So, Natalie leaned forward, what's your first move? Building a team, I said. Douglas has given me a lot of freedom there. Interesting, Natalie swirled her wine. Any specific talent in mind? Actually, yes. I met her gaze. You. Natalie blinked. Me? Senior Operations Manager, reporting to me. 20% salary increase over your current role, plus better benefits. I slid a folder across the table. The official offer's in there. Douglas approved it yesterday. Natalie opened it, scanning the document. Her eyes widened at the figures. This is very generous, she said cautiously. It's what you're worth, I replied. I always said you were underpaid at Hollowgate. But wouldn't this look like poaching? She finished. Of course it is. But you left Hollowgate months ago, so technically, I'm poaching from Travailant Corp. Still, Natalie hesitated. It'll look like we planned this. We didn't, I said firmly. But I'd be foolish not to recruit the best operations specialist I know, and Douglas agrees. Natalie flipped through the pages slowly. When do you need an answer? Take the weekend, I said. But I start Monday, and I'd love you there with me. Natalie tucked the folder into her bag. You know I've always wanted to work with you again. Then say yes. I'll call you tomorrow, she promised. We spent the next hour catching up on personal updates and discussing Hollowgate's changes since Natalie's exit. She confirmed my suspicions. Morale was tanking, longtime staff were polishing their resumes, and clients were worried about stability. The Petersham account is especially upset, Natalie mentioned. They've worked with you from the start and are nervous about the transition. Petersham Industries was Hollowgate's first major client. Their CEO, Victoria Petersham, and I had built a strong professional bond over the years. Good to know, I said, storing the information. As we prepared to leave, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Karen, it's Victoria Petersham. Heard about your exit from Hollowgate. Very concerning. Can we talk Monday? Important decisions to make. I showed Natalie. Well, she said with a whistle, that was fast. No, I agreed, it wasn't. The weekend was shaping up to be very intriguing. Monday morning brought a mix of nerves and excitement. I dressed carefully, opting for a confident yet understated outfit. This wasn't about flash, it was about launching a new chapter professionally. Tom kissed me goodbye at the door. Go show them what they're missing, he said with a proud smile. Ironwood Forge's offices spanned the top 3 floors of a modern downtown building, a sleek space with sweeping views of Minneapolis. The receptionist greeted me by name. Director Delaney, welcome to Ironwood. Mr. Williams is waiting in the conference room. Director Delaney. The title felt fresh but fitting. Douglas greeted me with a warm handshake. Karen, right on time. Ready to meet your team? Absolutely, I replied, following him into a large conference room where about 15 people waited. Everyone, Douglas announced, this is Karen Delaney, our new Director of Operations. Many of you know her by reputation. We're incredibly lucky to have her with us. The welcome was warm, the introductions seamless. I recognized a few faces from industry events, but most were new. I noted a solid mix of experience and specialties, a well-built operations department. And we have one more addition today, Douglas continued, glancing at the door as it opened. Natalie walked in, looking slightly nervous but polished. This is Natalie Chen, our new senior operations manager, reporting directly to Karen. I kept my expression neutral, though inside I was elated. Natalie had made her choice. After introductions, Douglas gave us a tour of the facilities, ending at my new office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows and a door linking to a smaller office for Natalie. I'll leave you to settle in, Douglas said. We have a leadership meeting at 11 to discuss strategy. He paused at the door. By the way, Victoria Petersham called this morning. She'd like to meet tomorrow. I nodded, unsurprised. I'll be ready. Once Douglas left, Natalie slipped into my office, closing the door. So, she said, barely containing her excitement, we're really doing this. We are, I confirmed. Thank you for joining me. Are you kidding? This is a career-defining opportunity. She glanced around the impressive office. And not a bad place to land. No, I agreed, not bad at all. Natalie grew serious. You should know, Hollowgate's in chaos. Word of your exit spread Friday afternoon. The operations team is freaking out. Megan doesn't understand half the systems you built. This was useful intel. How do you know this? I still have friends there, Natalie said with a small smile, including Jason in IT. Jason Hall had been with Hollowgate almost as long as I had, running IT with quiet competence and always an ally. Is he looking to move too? I asked carefully. Natalie shrugged. He didn't say outright. But he mentioned how frustrating it is watching Torres and Megan tear down functional systems without understanding them. Another piece of information to tuck away. I'd need to tread cautiously. Recruiting one former colleague might be seen as chance. Systematically pulling a team would be rightly viewed as a calculated move. Let's focus on settling in here first, I said. We can talk recruits later. Natalie nodded and stood to leave. One more thing you should know, she added. Megan's been calling and emailing me all weekend, trying to figure out how to access your operational documentation. I smiled. That's unfortunate for her. You didn't leave a transition plan? I documented everything thoroughly, I replied, but understanding it requires context Megan never bothered to learn. The 11 o'clock leadership meeting introduced me to Ironwood's executive team. Douglas had assembled a sharp group, seasoned professionals who asked smart questions and showed genuine interest in my vision for operations. Karen, Douglas said as the meeting wrapped, tell us about your approach to client transitions, especially for companies switching from competitors. It was a perfect opening to address the room's unspoken question, could we capture Hollowgate's clients? The key is continuity, I began. Clients leave providers when they feel neglected or lose faith in stability. Our job is to show we understand their needs and can meet them seamlessly. I outlined my strategy, tailored transition plans, dedicated implementation teams, and regular check-ins. What we won't do, I stressed, is badmouth Hollowgate or any competitor. We highlight our strengths, not their flaws. The team nodded, impressed. This was professional conduct. After the meeting, I returned to my office to find an email from Victoria Petersham confirming our meeting for the next morning. With 16 years of history, I knew this wasn't a casual check-in. Victoria was seriously considering shifting Petersham Industries' business to Ironwood. My phone rang, Megan Russo's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. A moment later, the notification appeared. I played it, curious. Karen, this is Megan Russo, her voice tense. We need to discuss transitioning your operational knowledge. Some documentation is unclear. Please call me back soon. I deleted it. 5 minutes later, a text from her, this is unprofessional. The company needs your cooperation for a smooth transition. I smiled. Megan was learning that firing someone on a Friday with no transition plan had consequences. Later, Natalie joined me to review Ironwood's operations processes. She'd already spotted areas for improvement. Their system functions, she explained, but it's not optimized. We could apply some Hollowgate refinements to boost efficiency by at least 20%. I nodded. Draft a proposal. We'll present it to Douglas by week's end. My phone buzzed again. Jessica from Hollowgate's Hour. I ignored it. They're getting desperate, Natalie observed. They're realizing institutional knowledge can't be transferred in a day. I replied, especially when they didn't value it enough for a proper handover. Will you call them back? I considered it. No. I met all my contractual obligations. I owe them nothing more. The calls and texts persisted. Megan, Jessica, and, at 4:30 p.m., Vivian Torres herself. Each message grew more urgent. Torres's final text was telling, Karen, this is Vivian Torres. We may have acted too quickly. Please call to discuss possible arrangements. Too little, too late. By day's end, I'd outlined a detailed plan for operational enhancements, scheduled team meetings, and prepped for Victoria Petersham's visit. As I packed up, Douglas stopped by. Productive first day? Very, I replied. I heard Hollowgate's scrambling to reach you. I raised an eyebrow. News spreads fast in this industry. Always. Douglas leaned against the doorframe. Victoria Petersham called again. She's bringing her CTO to our meeting tomorrow. That was significant. Victoria wouldn't include her technical leadership unless she was serious about switching. We'll be ready, I assured him. The meeting with Victoria Petersham and her CTO, Andrew Michaels, started formally but warmed as our long-standing rapport took over. I'll be blunt, Karen, Victoria said after pleasantries. Hollowgate's recent moves worry us. Your departure turned that worry into alarm. Andrew nodded. The systems you built are critical to our operations. No one knows them like you. Douglas jumped in smoothly. Ironwood is ready to offer a comprehensive transition package. Karen would personally oversee implementation. Victoria and Andrew exchanged looks. We'd need guarantees of continuity, Victoria said cautiously. You'd have them, I promised, plus upgrades to systems I've envisioned but couldn't execute at Hollowgate. The meeting lasted 2 hours, detailing a transition plan. By the end, the decision was nearly sealed. We'll review with our legal team, Victoria said, collecting her materials, but assuming no contractual hurdles, I think we're aligned. As they left, Douglas gave me an approving nod. That, he said, was masterful. Over the next 2 weeks, the pattern repeated with 3 more major Hollowgate clients. Each cited similar issues, doubts about Hollowgate's stability, distrust in new leadership, and trust in me personally. By my 3rd week at Ironwood, we'd transitioned 4 of Hollowgate's largest accounts, nearly 30% of their annual revenue. The industry noticed. Ironwood's stock climbed, Hollowgate sank. Analysts questioned Torres's strategy. Through contacts, I learned Megan had been demoted, and Hollowgate's operations team was struggling to maintain service levels. It wasn't personal, just business, but the satisfaction was real. The final blow came in my 4th week. Jason Hall, Hollowgate's IT director, requested a meeting. "I've been with Hollowgate almost as long as you were," he said over coffee. "But it's not the same company. You're thinking of moving?" I asked, not as a question. Jason nodded. "And not just me. At least 6 senior team members are ready to leave." This was huge. These were key players, Hollowgate's technical core. "Ironwood would be interested," I said cautiously, "but this needs careful handling." "Of course," Jason agreed. "We're professionals." Within a month, Ironwood onboarded Jason and 4 other Hollowgate veterans. Each brought critical skills and client ties. Transitions were ethical but strategic. The industry took note. Investment firms questioned Hollowgate's survival amid such talent and client losses. 6 months after my abrupt Zoom dismissal, Hollowgate announced a strategic restructuring, code for major cuts. Vivian Torres resigned as CEO. Megan Russo was let go. Douglas found me in my office, reviewing quarterly reports, when the news broke. "Congratulations," he said, tossing a newspaper on my desk. The headline read, "Hollowgate Systems announces major restructuring, CEO exits." "I didn't do this for revenge," I said, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. "No," Douglas agreed with a knowing smile. "You did it because you're the best operations director in the business, and they were fools to let you go." "Their loss," I said. "Our gain." The revenge wasn't the goal, but it was undeniably sweet. Driving home that evening, I reflected on the past 6 months, from the sting of dismissal to the triumph of building something better at Ironwood. I'd moved beyond personal vindication to professional reinvention.